strange marriage. The royal palace of Zareth Prime glittered with lights. Thousands of alien nobles filled the great hall. Tall banners of silver and gold hung from the walls, each one showing the proud symbol of the Zarethian Empire. The day was not for war or politics. It was for a royal wedding, but not everyone was smiling. The princess of Zareth, Leora, stood in her shining gown, her crown resting lightly on her head. She looked perfect as her people expected, yet deep inside her mind was heavy. She was not marrying a Zarethian general or noble. She was not even marrying someone of her own species. Her groom was human. His name was Daniel Hale, a man from a small blue planet called Earth, a planet that most of the galaxy still saw as young and unimportant, the guests whispered as Daniel entered the hall. He wore a simple ceremonial uniform, not covered in jewels or glowing armor like the alien nobles. He looked ordinary. "Is this a joke?" one noble muttered. "The great princess married to a human, to a weak, harmless creature." Another sneered. "They say humans are still children in the stars. How can one stand beside royalty?" The laughter spread like poison through the hall. Princess Leora's lips pressed into a thin line. She had agreed to this marriage because of politics. Her advisors said it would bring peace between humans and Zarethians. But in her heart, she believed what the others whispered. Humans were clever, yes. They had fire in their spirit, but they were not warriors like the Zarethians. They were not rulers of great empires. They were fragile, harmless. She stole a glance at Daniel. He stood calm, his face unreadable, his eyes scanning the room like he was measuring every detail. She thought he looked nervous, maybe even lost. "He will not last long here," she told herself. "He will be nothing more than a shadow at my side." The ceremony began. High priests spoke the ancient vows, the nobles gave their reluctant blessings, and at last, the crown of consort was placed upon Daniel's head. The hall echoed with polite claps, but no true joy. To the galaxy, this wedding was a mistake, a symbol of weakness. Later, during the royal feast, the whispers grew louder. Nobles drank their glowing wine and mocked the human openly. "Tell us, human," one of the generals said loudly, his fangs sharp in the firelight. "How do you plan to protect our princess? With those soft hands of yours? With your tiny ships?" Laughter erupted around the table. Daniel did not laugh. He raised his glass calmly, his voice steady. "I will protect her the only way a man should, with everything I have." The hall went quiet for a second, but then the laughter grew louder. To them, his words were empty. Princess Leora turned her head away. She felt heat in her cheeks, not from pride, but from shame. She had married someone the entire court considered a joke. That night, in her private chamber, Leora removed her crown and sighed. She looked at Daniel, who stood near the window staring at the stars. "Do you know what they call you?" she asked softly. Daniel didn't turn. "I can guess. They think you are harmless, weak, a man who cannot stand in the world of empires." Finally, Daniel turned. His eyes were calm, but there was a strange fire inside them. A fire Leora did not expect. "Let them think what they want," he said. "I don't need to prove myself with words." Leora frowned. "Then how will you survive here? These people are not kind. They will test you. They will try to break you." Daniel stepped closer, his voice low but sharp. "Princess, where I come from, survival is not a choice. It is a habit. The galaxy thinks humans are harmless because they have not yet seen what we can do. But one day," he paused, his eyes fixed on hers, "one day they will." A chill ran down Leora's spine. For the first time, she wondered if she had misjudged him. Outside the palace, the galaxy moved on, uncaring about the marriage. Nobles laughed, empires sneered, and enemies of the Zareth whispered of weakness. But inside the royal chambers, an unseen storm was waiting. The princess thought her human husband was harmless. But soon the galaxy would learn how dangerous he truly was. The first insult, the days after the wedding, were heavy with whispers. In every corner of the palace, nobles mocked the human husband. To them, Daniel Hale was nothing more than a symbol of weakness. Princess Leora walked through the great halls each day with her head high, but she could hear the laughter behind her back. "Poor princess," they whispered, "forced to marry a harmless creature." Her empire will crumble with such a consort. She pretended not to care, but inside her pride burned. She wanted to scream at Daniel, to ask him why he never fought back. But Daniel was silent, calm, always watching. One evening, a great banquet was held for the visiting generals of the empire. The hall blazed with golden light, tables filled with exotic food, and soldiers boasting of their victories. Daniel sat quietly beside the princess, eating little, speaking less. He listened more than he spoke, his eyes moving from one face to another. The laughter grew louder as the wine flowed. Finally, one of the alien generals, a massive creature with armored skin and burning red eyes, rose from his seat. He staggered toward Daniel, his voice booming. "Tell us, human," the general growled. "What war have you fought? What blood have you spilled? Do you even know how to hold a blade?" The hall erupted in cruel laughter. Daniel calmly placed his cup down. He did not smile. He did not frown. His face was unreadable. "I've fought enough," he said simply. The general sneered. "Enough? Ha! You have fought nothing. You are weak. A pet for our princess. Harmless." He leaned closer, his breath hot and foul. "Tell me, little man, would you even dare to stand if I struck you?" The room froze. Every noble, every soldier leaned forward. They wanted to see the human humiliated. Daniel looked at the general for a long moment, then rose from his seat. He was not tall compared to the alien, not strong-looking, but when he stood, the atmosphere in the hall shifted. His eyes were steady, his movements precise, almost too calm. "If you strike me," Daniel said in a low voice, "I promise you, General, you will not rise again." The words were soft, but they cut through the laughter like a blade. The general snarled. "Threats from you?" He raised his massive hand to shove Daniel back, and then it happened. Before anyone could blink, Daniel moved. His hand shot up, gripping the general's wrist with unnatural speed. There was a sharp crack, and the alien howled in pain as his armored arm bent the wrong way. Gasps filled the hall. Nobles jumped from their seats, soldiers reached for weapons, but no one moved closer. Daniel's voice was calm, almost cold. "I warned you." He released the general, who collapsed to the floor, clutching his shattered wrist. The once proud warrior whimpered like a beaten child. The hall was silent. The only sound was the general's ragged breathing. Daniel sat back down slowly, lifted his cup, and took a sip of wine as if nothing had happened. Princess Leora's heart pounded in her chest. She stared at her husband, unable to speak. She had thought he was harmless, a simple man dragged into politics. But what she had just seen was something else, something frightening. Her mind raced. How did he move so fast? How did he break a warrior's arm like it was nothing? The nobles who had laughed earlier now sat stiff and pale. No one dared to insult the human again that night. Later, when the feast was over, Leora confronted him in their private chambers. What did you do?" she whispered. "That general has fought for 50 years. His bones are stronger than steel. And yet you," Daniel interrupted quietly. "I did what I said I would." "I don't bluff," she stared at him. "You are not harmless." For the first time, Daniel gave a small smile. Not warm, not gentle, but sharp. "No, princess, I'm not." News of the incident spread across the palace, then across the empire. The story twisted in every retelling. Some said the human had broken the general's arm with one hand. Others claimed he had nearly killed him with just a stare. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain. The galaxy had begun to see Daniel differently. He was no longer just the harmless human husband. He was something else, something no one yet understood. And Princess Leora, lying awake that night, realized a terrifying truth. She had married a man the galaxy should never underestimate. The threat from outside the palace halls was still whispering about the banquet. No one dared insult the human consort after what happened to the general. Yet behind closed doors, the nobles grumbled. "He is dangerous. He humiliated one of our best. The princess should never have brought him here." Princess Leora heard their whispers, but she said nothing. Her own mind was in conflict. Daniel was not what she thought. He was not harmless. He was not weak. But what was he? Then the threat came. A messenger ship arrived from the outer colonies. Its hull was torn, its crew half dead, their eyes wide with terror. "The Krail are coming," they whispered. "An entire fleet. They have already burned 3 of our worlds." The Krail were not like other enemies. They were raiders from the black edges of the galaxy, monsters that devoured everything. Their fleets moved like swarms, their soldiers killed without reason. Even the proud Zarethian generals avoided them when possible. Panic spread through the Empire. The council gathered in the war chamber, maps glowing with red marks where colonies had fallen. "We must pull back," one noble said. "No," another argued. "We must send everything we have to the border." Others shouted about politics, about pride, about saving their own estates. In the middle of the chaos, Daniel stood silently at the edge of the chamber, his hands behind his back. He listened. He watched. And then, when the shouting reached its loudest, he spoke. "You will lose," he said calmly. The room froze. Dozens of alien eyes turned toward him. "What did you say, human?" A noble snarled. "You will lose this war if you keep shouting like children," Daniel replied. His voice was not loud, but it carried like steel. Princess Leora's breath caught. No one spoke to the council like that. Not even generals, but Daniel continued. "The Krail will not wait for you to agree. While you argue, they are already moving. Your fleets are too slow, your defenses too scattered. If you meet them head-on, you will be crushed." The nobles roared in anger. "How dare you?" Silence. It was Princess Leora. Her voice cut across the chamber. She turned to Daniel, her eyes searching his face. "Then what do you suggest, husband?" Daniel stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the glowing map. He pointed at the red marks. "They move like a swarm, which means they overextend. They stretch themselves thin. You don't fight the swarm head-on. You bleed it piece by piece." He tapped the map. "Here, these 3 systems. Abandon them. Pull the civilians back. Then set traps, minefields, hidden satellites, sabotage. Make the Krail chase shadows. Slow them down. Cut their supply lines. Force them into choke points where their numbers mean nothing." He shifted his hand to another point. "And here. Hide a strike fleet. Small, fast ships. When the swarm pushes too far, hit their rear. Burn their fuel depots. Kill their transports. Make them starve." The chamber was silent. Daniel raised his head. "That is how you fight a swarm. Not by throwing everything at them, but by making them break themselves." The nobles muttered nervously. "It is madness," one said. "It is strategy," another admitted slowly. Princess Leora felt a chill run down her spine. The human had spoken with the calm of a man who had seen war before. She stared at him, realizing again that he was far more than what he seemed. Finally, one of the oldest generals leaned forward. "If we follow this plan, we may actually have a chance." And so for the first time the Empire listened to a human. Orders were sent. Colonies evacuated. Fleets repositioned. Traps laid in the darkness of space. When the Krail came, they found empty worlds. Their ships drifted into minefields. Their transports exploded before reaching safe harbors. Their fleets slowed, starved, confused. And then, when they pushed too deep, the hidden strike fleet hit them like knives in the dark. For the first time in centuries, the Krail were forced to retreat. Across the Empire, citizens cheered. The Krail, the unstoppable swarm, had been turned back, and in the palace, whispers began to change. "The human, he saved us. His mind is sharper than any general's." Perhaps the princess did not marry a weakness, but a weapon. Princess Leora stood beside Daniel on the balcony, watching the city lights. "You should not have been able to do this," she said quietly. "You are not a soldier of our empire. You are not even of our kind. How do you know war so well?" Daniel's eyes were on the stars. His voice was low. "Because on Earth we learned long ago. To survive, you must think like the enemy. You must fight smarter or you die. Humanity has always lived this way." Leora shivered. She had thought her husband was harmless, but tonight she realized something far more dangerous. Her husband was human, and humans were survivors. The rise of the human. The war with the Krail did not end with one retreat. They returned angrier than before. This time they sent a massive fleet, larger than anything the Zarethians had faced. The council panicked again. Nobles whispered of surrender. Generals argued over who should lead the counterattack. But when the decision came, all eyes turned to Daniel. The human stood at the center of the chamber, his hands folded behind his back. "I will lead the defense," he said. The nobles roared in protest. "Impossible. A human cannot lead our fleets." But Princess Leora raised her hand. "He saved us once. He will save us again." And just like that, the fate of the Empire rested in the hands of the man they once mocked. The fleet launched. Hundreds of Zarethian warships lined the stars, waiting at the edge of a dead system where Daniel had chosen the battleground. He stood aboard the flagship, calm while officers trembled. The Krail swarm arrived, a sea of black ships blotting out the stars. Their numbers seemed endless. "Signal the fleet," Daniel ordered. His voice was sharp, steady. "Hold formation. Do not fire until I give the word." The aliens obeyed, though their hands shook. The Krail surged forward like a tidal wave. Closer, closer, their weapons glowing. Every Zarethian officer wanted to fire. Every instinct screamed to unleash their cannons, but Daniel waited. "Not yet," he murmured. Finally, when the swarm reached the edge of the asteroid field, Daniel spoke one word. "Now." The void exploded with light. Hidden charges inside the asteroids detonated, sending massive rocks hurtling into the swarm. Dozens of Krail ships were crushed instantly, the rest scattered in confusion. The Zarethian fleet opened fire with perfect precision, their blasts ripping through the enemy ranks. But the Krail kept coming. Their numbers were still overwhelming. They closed the distance, and soon the battle became chaos. It was then that Daniel showed the galaxy what a human truly was. The enemy boarded several Zarethian ships, breaking through their hulls. Soldiers screamed as the insect-like Krail warriors poured in. Daniel did not stay safe on the command deck. He armed himself with a rifle and a blade, and led the counterattack personally. The princess watched the live feed in horror as her human husband charged into battle with alien soldiers 10 times his size. He moved with terrifying speed, his shots precise, his blade cutting through enemies with brutal efficiency. When a Krail warrior knocked the rifle from his hands, Daniel did not falter. He grabbed a piece of broken metal and drove it into the creature's throat. He fought like a man who had lived through endless wars. He fought like a survivor who refused to die. The alien soldiers who mocked him as harmless would never have believed the sight. Hours passed. The battle raged across space. Dozens of Zarethian ships burned, but the traps and Daniel's strategies continued to break the swarm apart. Finally, with their fleet shattered and their soldiers slaughtered, the Krail retreated once more. The humans had not only survived, they had won. The Empire celebrated, but in the palace, silence reigned. The nobles who once mocked him bowed their heads when Daniel passed. Soldiers whispered his name like a legend. Princess Leora looked at him differently now. When they stood together on the balcony that night, she spoke softly. "I thought you were harmless. I thought you were only here because of politics. But today, I saw something else." Daniel's eyes were hard, his voice quiet. "You saw what it means to be human." She hesitated. "You fight like no one I've ever seen. Where does that come from?" He looked up at the stars. "From Earth, from history written in blood. We were never the strongest, never the biggest, but we learned to fight harder, smarter, to never give up. That is what humanity is." Leora shivered, not from fear, but from awe. For the first time she understood. Her human husband was not weak. He was not harmless. He was the storm that would change the galaxy, and across the Empire a new whisper spread. The princess married a human. No, not a human. She married the man who will lead us into a new age. The Emperor of Two Worlds, the Krail, never returned. Their defeat at the hands of a single human commander had shaken the galaxy. But the Zarethian nobles were uneasy. They had placed their survival in the hands of an outsider, and he had proven more capable than all of them combined. In the palace, whispers grew louder. Some feared him, some wanted him gone, but the common people, soldiers, workers, even merchants, spoke his name with pride. Daniel, the human, the one who saved us, the warrior who never bows. The alien queen summoned him. She sat on her throne, her expression unreadable, while Princess Leora stood at her side. "You have changed the course of our empire," the queen said slowly. "You were brought here as a husband of politics, nothing more. Yet you led us to victory. Now tell me, what do you want?" The nobles leaned forward, waiting. Surely the human would ask for power, for riches, for land. But Daniel shook his head. "I want peace. I want unity. And I want your people to know humanity is not weak. We will not kneel to killers. We will not be forgotten." His words were simple, but they carried the weight of every battle humanity had ever fought. Not long after, an even greater shock spread through the empire. The humans of Earth, hearing of Daniel's victory, sent a delegation. Their ships arrived in orbit, far smaller and weaker than the alien fleets, but their confidence was unshakable. For the first time, two worlds stood face to face, Earth and Zareth. At the Great Council, nobles scoffed at the humans. "They are primitive," one sneered. "They have no fleets, no armies that match ours." Daniel stood between the two sides, his voice calm but sharp. "You underestimate my people the same way you once underestimated me. If we are weak, then why did I defeat the swarm you could not stop?" The room went silent. In time, something unthinkable happened. The queen, impressed by his loyalty and his victories, announced a new decree. From that day forward, Daniel would not only be her daughter's husband, he would be declared co-emperor of the Zarethian Empire. The coronation was unlike anything seen before. Thousands filled the grand hall. Banners of both Earth and Zareth hung side by side. Soldiers pounded their weapons against the ground, chanting his name. Princess Leora stood beside him, her pride shining in her eyes. Once she had thought him harmless. Now she knew she stood beside the strongest leader in the galaxy. As the crown of light was placed upon his head, Daniel raised his hand. "My people," he declared, his voice carrying across the chamber and beyond through every broadcast across the stars. "I am not just human. I am your ally. I am your shield. Together, we are stronger than any swarm, any empire, any enemy. We are the future." The hall erupted with cheers, but beyond the celebration, whispers spread through other alien civilizations. The galaxy remembered the warning. Do not negotiate with killers. Do not underestimate humans. They looked upon the rise of the human emperor with fear and awe, for if one human could unite an empire, what would happen when the rest of Earth stood beside him? That night, in the quiet of the royal balcony, Princess Leora turned to him. "You have changed everything," she said softly. "Our worlds, our galaxy, even me." Daniel looked at her, his eyes calm but fierce. "No," he replied. "I didn't change the galaxy. Humanity always had this power. They just never saw it until now." She smiled, placing her hand on his. "Then together, we will make sure they never forget." And as the twin moons rose over the alien capital, the galaxy whispered the name of the human who was once thought harmless. Not harmless. Not weak, but the emperor of two worlds.